This story was sent in by Amber L. from Texas. Most nights in my neighborhood are quiet enough that I can hear the cicadas through the walls. By the time my kids are finally in bed, usually around 9:30 or so, I'm running on whatever energy is left after homework battles, dishes, and the whole bedtime routine. That night, it was closer to 10:15. I remember because I just looked at the clock to decide whether I had the energy to shower or if I'd give in to exhaustion. I live in a pretty typical suburban part of Texas, one of those areas where most people know each other well enough to wave, but not well enough to share more than small talk. We have long streets with identical mailboxes and a lot of households that wind down early. By 10, porch lights are on timers and everything feels muted. I was standing in the hallway, wiping off my makeup, when I first noticed the car across the street through the narrow gap in the blinds. At first glance, it wasn't anything unusual. People park along the curb all the time, and sometimes guests of neighbors stay late. I didn't even pause the first time, but when I came back through the hallway a few minutes later, the shape of the car caught my eye again. It wasn't that it looked unfamiliar, it was something else, something off. The car was sitting in a patch of dark between streetlights, and what made me really notice it was how completely still it was. No interior lights, no headlights, no plate reflection. Texas plates are pretty reflective, even in low light. This car didn't have any at all. That was the early detail that snagged my attention. No plates, no lights, no sound. I told myself maybe it was a new car someone just bought, or maybe the plate had fallen off or been removed for repairs. I had a whole internal debate over it, the kind where you try to be the reasonable adult and not the worried parent imagining every possibility. Still, something made me check again. This time, I carefully spread 2 blinds with my fingers so I could get a better look. The street was empty, just that car. And sitting in the driver's seat was a person. I couldn't make out much, just the silhouette of a head turned fully toward my house. Not moving, not shifting, not looking down at a phone, just staring. The silence in the house suddenly felt heavier, like the walls themselves were listening. I stepped back from the window fast, instinctively. My heart wasn't racing, but I felt a tightness in my stomach the way I do when one of the kids sleepwalks. It's a rush of alertness mixed with confusion. I kept running through possibilities. Maybe they were a rideshare driver waiting for a fare. Maybe they were lost and checking directions. Maybe someone had fallen asleep. All logical explanations, but none of them fit with a car that had no plates and no lights, and a person sitting upright, staring out toward my house like they were waiting for something. I considered stepping outside to get a better look. That's the part I keep thinking about. I almost did. I had my hand on the deadbolt at one point, but something stopped me. Maybe the fact that the car had been there almost 20 minutes without a single sign of normal behavior. I backed away and grabbed my phone. I didn't feel like it was an emergency, not yet, but I wanted someone else to know that a car with no plates and a silent driver was idling outside. So I called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher was calm, asked me for a description, asked whether the person had gotten out or approached the house or done anything threatening. I told her no, nothing like that. Just staring, just sitting there. She said an officer in the area would swing by. I stayed in the hallway, lights off, looking between the kids' doors and the front windows. I felt ridiculous being that tense. I remember thinking, if this ends up being someone waiting for their cousin or something, I'm going to feel like a fool. But even while thinking that, I kept my distance from the windows. I checked again when I heard a car in the distance. It wasn't the officers yet, it was just someone driving down the main road. But the sound made me look. The car with no plates was still there, still dark, still motionless, except the person inside wasn't staring straight anymore. Their head had shifted, angled upward slightly, like they were listening. A minute or two later, I heard another engine. This one slower, heavier. A patrol car. I peeked carefully. The cruiser turned onto our street, and just like that, like it had been waiting for that exact moment, the unmarked car across the street was gone. No engine revving. No headlights flashing on. I didn't hear tires. It just wasn't there anymore. The dark space between the streetlights was empty. The officers pulled up, scanned the street, and talked to me briefly from my porch. They were professional but not overly concerned. Without seeing the car themselves, there wasn't much they could do. I kept emphasizing that the person inside hadn't moved, that the car had no plates, that something about the way they were watching felt deliberate. They nodded and said they would circle the area. But I knew by then that whatever or whoever it was had been waiting for the right moment to slip away unnoticed. For the next few nights, I found myself checking the street every hour. I kept all the blinds angled downward. I parked my own car closer to the garage. Even during the day, I'd glance at any unfamiliar vehicle longer than I normally would. Weeks passed before the tension faded, but it never really disappeared. Not completely. Now, whenever I'm doing my last rounds at night, locking doors, turning off lights, I still look through the blinds one more time. Not because I expect the same car to come back, but because I learned how quickly something can go from normal to deeply wrong without making a single sound.